All right, welcome, everybody.
Great question. I'm glad I gave you an answer. No.
Yeah.
I
All
would-
right.
I would do it, but I can't figure out which language I write in. Can everyone online hear us on Zoom?
Yes.
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 Right, I will take attendance. Debbie Small. Joan Coco,
Yes. Yeah.
Karen Fortino. Karen Panett. Marilyn Shapley, yes. Karen Janowski. Yes. John Parsons.
Yes.
Sally Hoyt. Sandy Schaefer. Can't do some-
Units.
Jackie trying to join.
She's already joined.
She has joined, okay.
Just won't show up on the T-show.
Okay. Sandy Schaefer, no. Nancy Twadros. Here. Nancy Zimblak. Yes.
But she looks enthusiastic.
Jackie Behenna.
Here.
We really want to invite Kim family to continue the last.
Rosemary. Whoever's talking, if you
Yep,
could
got
read.
it.
You got it, okay. Rosemary Di Benedetto.
Yes, here.
Beverly Cuneo. And Jean Prado. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 full members. We need someone who is an associate to act as a voting member this evening. Rosemary, would you be willing to do it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Because Nancy can't, and Jackie, next time, we'll try to rotate.
Is Karen Panett here?
No,
Oh, Jean
Karen
P
Fatino?
just showed in, or just popped in.
Is Karen Fatino here?
It's like Jean
And-
Prado is on.
Debbie Small?
no.
You're not here.
Is Jean Prado here?
No.
I think
Yes.
she,
here. I'm
Jean
here.
Prado. Oh,
Yes.
it is. It showed up.
All right.
Debbie's coming on too.
Okay, so Debbie is here and Jean Prado is
There we go.
here. Okay, so Rosemary, we do now have a full quorum of full members, so thank you, for volunteer to serve. Okay. Agenda, first item, so we're called to order at 6:33. Approving the April minutes, we have 2 sets of minutes. Should we take them one at a time or can we do them collectively? Nancy, you needed to know who attended the April 3rd meeting.
yes,
I have that list.
okay, so you can just give it to me.
I'll just take a picture of it, give you that. And
Can we talk about the times that is on the one about for April 18th?
well, working on the April 3rd one right now.
Okay.
I noticed a typo. Maybe it's Freudian. Mark is continuing negations of the former Walgreens sign. I know, we apologize. Negotiations. Okay, thanks. And I've got the list of members. I will take a picture and say who were here and send you that.
I had some questions.
Okay,
So under the video review draft, yes, and you work hard, but I don't understand what it says. I think you did a good job, okay?
I just didn't attach people's names to it. They were just comments.
it's a transcription of what she heard on the tape, I
Right?
believe.
So someone said that. So those
So-
are just comments.
Okay, so that is confusing to me, so I'm wondering if we could make it clearer that these were some of the comments that were taken, that were transcribed, because I don't think that words like I think or I should be in minutes unless it's clear, because I didn't know who said them.
Okay, I'll add that. Or do you just want me to take those out? I'll take them out.
Yeah, you could say, you could summarize it and just say there were a number of productive comments as part of the discussion.
That's what I can do. Does everybody agree to take the comments out? Okay.
Yep.
And I'll do the same on question 2.
Sounds good. Are there comments on, should we vote separate? Can we?
So
vote?
is that, we have to vote.
We do, okay, I tried.
So somebody needs to vote to approve them, so I can,
Any further discussion on them first?
we ought to take the motion first.
Okay.
Discuss it.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Move to accept the meeting minutes from April 3rd, 2023
As amended.
as amended.
Second.
Okay. Call the roll.
Now we do discussion.
That's something that hasn't been in the minutes, but I don't think it's any big deal. But
What's
it
that?
used to be. Who made the motion and who seconded it?
Yeah, it's like a lot of work to do that. So the next secretary
All
can
right,
do it.
we're off topic here. We're in the middle of a motion. If there's no more discussion, Debbie Small, you vote to approve the minutes as amended.
Yes, I do.
Joan Coco,
Yes,
Karen Platino still not here. Karen Pinette still not here. Marilyn Shapley, yes. Karen Janowski,
Yes.
John Parsons.
Yes.
Sally is still not here. Sandy not here. Nancy Twadros. All right, they are approved as amended. On to the second set of minutes, which was from April 18th.
can I ask about the times?
Yes?
I don't remember the meeting being called to all order that early.
No, that's typo.
Somewhere when I was listening, anyways, I'll fix it.
It should have been 6:30.
What about a motion being made 5:50? That about an error too.
You know what, that's time into the tape, that's
Yeah,
what that
there you
is, that's minutes into the tape. If you watch.
No, it's not. It was when I looked at the tape, it had that time, but that's okay. I'll just change it.
Okay,
Okay, well, we need a motion to approve before we discuss. I'm learning. Do we have a motion to accept these minutes?
Move to accept the meeting.
was the time that you made the motion, 1:16 too?
But we're gonna discuss after we finish getting the motions, Joan.
Aren't we voting on the motion?
Not yet, I'm waiting for a second on the motion.
Second.
Thank you, all right, we'll vote on the motion to accept the minutes.
No,
No, first we discuss it.
Well, I thought you wanted the discussion after that. You said we had to wait for
Go
that.
ahead.
Okay, discussion, I'm sorry, getting around.
I was gonna say, how can you rank a discussion after you made the motion? Okay, where are we now?
We made the motion, we seconded the motion, now we're having discussion, right? Right. Discussion, go for it, Joan.
Oh, I don't understand any of the times in this one. That was my biggest, I mean, there was only 2 pages.
Okay, I'll remove them.
The 418, the 5550, the 59, and the 160,
They're gone.
and the motion to adjourn at 5:45. Oh,
Gone.
okay. I have no objection.
Any other discussion? All right, then I'll call it to vote to accept it as amended. Do you have to amend the motion to say as amended?
Friendly amendment, I offer it.
Jean Prados has her hand raised.
Oh, Jean, yes.
Hi, a quick thing, where it says members not present, is that correct? Didn't we have 2 people on vacation? Chris, were you here?
Chris is not a member.
Oh, okay, I know that, but I thought we should still make a note that he was not present, yes or no?
No,
No.
No.
You were missed.
Darren Janowski was not here, Sally Hoyt was not here, and Rosemary Di Benedetto was not here.
No, I don't know. I've been at all the meetings. Was that
No,
the
you
meeting
weren't.
that we were hacked?
no, Rosemary, that's
no,
when you
it's
did this-
special
that's
one.
when you went to the your thing in Wakefield. Rosemary.
Yeah,
Remember
you
you
had-
went, You went out to a thing in Wakefield and you couldn't make this one?
I don't remember. I thought I've made all of them. Have we covered the attendance on the meeting that was hacked? Because I was there.
Yes.
That was
Yes,
before this one.
I have a list of that. I'm giving it to Nancy. And I'm showing you there in that one, Rosemary.
Thank you.
No problem. All right, so are we ready to vote on this?
Yep.
All right. so. All right, Debbie Small,
Yes, I approve the minutes.
you, Joan Coco,
Yes,
Marilyn Shapley, yes, Karen Janowski,
I abstain, I wasn't here.
okay. John Parsons.
Yes,
Sandy, Nancy Twadros. That's majority anyway, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, we have 5 approving it and 1 abstain, so the minutes are accepted.
Who abstained? I wasn't here.
Oh. All right, on to the first topic on the agenda. Select Board recount, liaison update and discussion of next steps regarding a new senior center. Hot topic of the night.
well, recount, as I said at the last meeting, we had not had a meeting. There was one scheduled that got canceled. We still have not had a meeting since. So there really is nothing to report unless Mark has got something up his sleeve.
So the select board is going to be meeting a week from tonight, and one of the agenda items is to talk about what's the next step for recalc in terms of adjusting the charter or not, adjusting the sunset date or not. So that's a select board discussion for Tuesday. That's really the next step. I have heard from a number of recalc members asking me the question that John was asking, or that you're asking as well, Marilyn. And I think given, where we are now, the select board is going to talk about kind of reopening the whole discussion on the feasibility study, and then decide what makes sense in terms of another party kind of helping with that. We are going to have, I think, a discussion on an RFP for a feasibility study at the meeting next Tuesday, but we won't vote on it until the following meeting. So if there is any input to be shared before then, that's great. But I think that it'd be good for the board members to kind of talk through if there are some specific things that we'd like to see in the RFP, specific things covered in terms of that. I'm calling it a feasibility study, but I think at this point it's evaluating options that, between us, we all know pretty much what they are. It's a one handful, not even a full handful. And what are the things we want to make sure are encompassed in that study? The funds, we spent some money in terms of testing and other activities related to 17 Harnden, but the vast majority of the $300,000 remains, and its intention always was for exploring sites and doing some architectural drawings. So I think that's the plan. That is the plan, and then the board, I think, may have some more specific direction to offer too.
Mark, could you just, for the sake of everybody, not everyone necessarily knows, list off what the, however many sites there are that are currently being thought about at all?
I'm sorry,
The possible sites that we might ask the feasibility study to look at.
So certainly the Pleasant Street Center, and taking a look there. There's been discussion about reviewing Oakland Road. That might be an opportunity. Simon's Way.
yep. What else? That's it, isn't it?
So in terms of open space, I think, yes. I think obviously we'd like to kind of push and poke around again in town. I know we've done 2 RFPs asking for space. We're always interested to see what's happening down at Market Basket, to see if the current owner might, entertain doing something or listening. So I don't know if that's a possibility. But in terms of space that has 15,000 plus or minus square feet, there aren't that many options.
Have a chance to follow up with Fidel about Castine Field?
I have not. I think the board will talk a little bit about that to figure out whether or not that could be an option. So we'll talk to Fidel about that.
Thank
I think it's a town council question also.
you. Okay,
You mentioned open areas in the town. The area behind Fratton Corporation all the way down to the Wakefield line, is that just unusable land, or does the town not even own that?
Town does not own it.
Rosemary, you have a question?
Yes, my question involves Memorial Park. I know that attorneys have looked at that. I know that it is under trust. But can we take another look at that? And if we can't do anything with that land, who is paying for the upkeep? Is the town paying for the upkeep of that land? Maybe we should stop paying for it and let it go to forest if we can't use it for our needs, such as a new community center. Maybe we need new attorneys to look at that trust to try to break it.
So I wouldn't use the word break. Interpret might be a better way of thinking about it. So the town is getting a lot of value out of Memorial Park for passive recreation. It includes the courts that are up on top of it. There's a bandstand. It's used regularly for concerts and other activities. It's used for a number of passive recreation kinds of activities as well. So it's not like it's not being used. It is being used. And along the lines of what it was, what the trust was set up to do. I think what we're talking about is asking, is there a way to do something that's different from what's already in the trust, and dramatically different? And we can certainly approach that. Again, I think it's an expensive activity to do that. And I'm led to believe that we won't make much progress. And I don't believe that there are errors that could kind of help and kind of try to change things. I think the trust is kind of set up as it is. It certainly can be explored a little bit further. I would just want to be careful before we spend a lot of money chasing on that. I know that there are some residents in town who feel that we're already doing more than what should be allowed. That hasn't, aside from it coming up on a regular basis, it hasn't been an issue. It hasn't stopped us from doing what we're doing, but not related to any kind of construction or changing the use of the field. So
What do residents feel is being done there that shouldn't be done? Because they're not using it for any type of games.
Right, just
baseball or-
practices. Yeah, I mean, so I've heard some interpretations that even that's not okay, and potentially even having courts and games in the courts is questionable. So it comes up pretty regularly as a discussion. I think the town has not abused what was meant in the trust to date. And if we were to try to change it dramatically, I think that's a different story. And we have heard some feedback in terms of what is and what isn't. And I'm rather certain construction would not fit the construction and creating a space there.
Does the trust provide monies for the upkeep?
No,
Of the
it's
park?
not. I believe,
So
I don't believe so.
That's all town expense?
Right, so we put in the courts, I believe we put in the bandstand, and whatever maintenance is going on there, we take care of. And again, there's quite a bit of use for non-game sporting activities, whether it's walking or practices or things like that. So the town does use that field quite a bit. I shouldn't call it a field. They use the park quite a bit for different activities. There's also a desire, you should know too, Rosemary, that I've heard a few residents ask if that could be turned into a dog park because of its location. I'm rather certain we'll run into the same problem of, that's not a use that was envisioned at all. So I don't think that one is possible either. But there may be reasons to go to court and get an interpretation, a new interpretation.
So has there actually been a study of the usage of that land? An actual paper printout usage of how much land is being used? Has somebody looked at the activities there and written it up, like Monday and Tuesday this?
Well, so it's different times of year, there are different things that go on, but there is access to it on a regular basis. I do believe a list was made of the types of activities that take place there. The schedule varies. So for example, concerts get booked, and I'm Jenny, you probably know more about this in terms of bandstand space and booking that out. I think the fields, I think certain sports are given access to practice there at different times of the year when it's early season for either softball or I think not baseball, but I think softball or t-ball, I think works there. I think youth soccer has activities there. The courts are used for tennis and pickleball. I think basketball. Let's see what else goes on.
Mark, I think probably these are things that'll be covered in the feasibility study when we get to that stage. Okay, so that's to be discussed further at great length, Rosemary. Nancy, did you have
That
a
was
question?
it.
Oh,
That's what I
okay.
was gonna say.
Okay. All right, thank you. Probably say ditto for all those questions for Castine Field and very different answers, I'm sure, but you'll get there when you get to the feasibility study.
Right.
Anyone else have any questions relating to recalc, select board, next steps right now? Thank you, Mark, very much. Simon's Way Committee Liaison update. My understanding is since you haven't met since our last meeting, we don't have an update yet.
Don't have an update, we're meeting at 7 o'clock next door.
Right.
So no update because we have not met since we last met.
Thank you very much. All right. MVES update. I can give us a little information about this. Michelle Copper is on the MVES now, and she sends me emails about things that are going on. And just to give you a sampling of it, she sent one about the House budget amendment advocacy was needed. She sent me another one about housing meetings that were being discussed. One of the challenges we face with this is she'll find out about something and a meeting is next week and we don't have a good way to communicate because of the open meeting laws and risking getting discussion going. I've asked to have coffee with her to think about how we can best learn about what's going on at the MVES in a timely manner so that if the council were to do something, we could, as opposed to just 2 weeks ago, I heard about this and it was interesting, but you know, it was beyond the means of communication. But they do really interesting stuff. They're strong advocates for the elders in the community. Jenna, do you go to meetings there as well? Are you still on a committee?
I was never on the MVES.
You were never on it?
No.
You're on their website.
Oh, I am? No, I've never attended.
You sure you're not confusing?
But if, yeah, I mean, I would go if I was on the board,
Oh,
but
I'm thinking of
obviously.
Carrie. I'm thinking of Carrie. You're right. Sorry. I didn't eat dinner. It was a big mistake.
No worries.
Yeah,
Yes.
is it mostly that she's just sharing information with you? Because you could send that on to us.
She's looking for us to get involved in things if we'd like, and someone really taking the charge and organizing it, figuring out what it would mean, what might we do, who wants to do it, and following up, I think. I don't, if it's as simple as just information, maybe we can find a way, I can just send
Forward
it. Yeah.
So I just joined their planning and advocacy oversight committee.
Oh,
as
great.
just a community member. No, I'm not on their board or anything like that. So I can help be someone to communicate back
Okay,
information that I learned there.
fabulous.
And there were two different boards down there. We have people from town on both boards.
No, it's one board and another volunteer committee or something, and they've changed their in recruiting process. They no longer are recruiting people in all but exceptional cases to directly become a board member. They've decided it's more helpful for people to get brought in. They go through the interview process, get accepted, get approved, put them on a committee so they get some firsthand experience and what's really going on at MVES and learn about it. And once they sort of become more knowledgeable and know what they're getting into, and also once the existing board gets a sense of the people and how committed they are, then they do the next step of someone perhaps recommending that they move up to board member. So it's a new recruiting process there.
According to Neil Schmidt, there are two boards. He's on one, Kerry Valley's on the other. I mean, Neil Schmidt's he was a professor at Michigan State for 44 years, so I think he's got his faculty.
Now you never know. But
Don't mind the
all right,
fun.
I might have, I know one is a board. I thought the other was not a board. I thought it was a committee, but I could be wrong.
I think one's advisory.
Okay,
One's
an advisory
advisory.
board, one's a active board or something like that. Okay, whatever. They're now recruiting people into committees, not directly to board seats, is my latest understanding.
Yes, that's how I got it.
Yes, yes, this is their new thing. And Michelle Copper, I know, went through that too, and I don't know if you're still pursuing your application for there or not, but that's what you'll probably find
Yeah.
when you do. If and when you do. All right, so that's the MBS update. Elder Services report, you sent us a report, Chris.
Yes. So April was a pretty good month. You can see at the top, we have the Delvina Theater Company. We got a grant towards the end of last year for that. So that was a pretty, we were glad to have them in on April 18th. Jenna and Carrie attended the Reading Community Supports Fair at the library on April 26th, which is awesome. Let's Get Digital was a fantastic event in April. On the 27th, we went over QR codes, and I think we had 16, Nancy? We had 16. We had a great group, which was awesome. Coming up, we have, it looks like we have a really good busy May coming up. Birthday lunch is Thursday. We have we have a smaller trip, the Louisa Alcott Orchard House trip on May 9th. So we have a big trip and we're starting a small trip too. So we have just taken our van bus for this one. And we also have May 18th, I think it is, we're going down to Rhode Island for a bigger trip. So we're increasing our trips a little bit, which is awesome. Thanks to Anna set the Louisa May Alcott one up. Memory Cafe coming up. We have our health fair next week, I think it's May 11th, Thursday. So 10 to 1. So if you want to come down for our health fair, we're excited about that. Mother's Day luncheon is May 10th, which is has turned into a huge, we are already 24 on the wait list for the Mother's Day luncheon. And then we have the Lions Club dinner on May 18th. Doors open at 4:30 p.m. for that. The meal starts is served at 5. Pizza and a movie. May 25th, we're going to watch 80 for Brady. So we already have a really good turnout for that too, which we're excited about. Someone had mentioned numbers why the March and April were a little bit different. Just keep in mind, the big difference is we had quite a few things in March. We had, not saying we didn't have a lot of things in April, it was just different. We had Tai Chi start in March, but then the instructor had to take a break. We had the St. Patrick's Day lunch, Fenway. We had the lunch and learn, and then we also had the OT students that were helping us out for the semester from Regis College with us. So we had just March ended up lining up to where we had quite a few things, and that's where our larger number came in. But May is looking to be quite large as well, so we're excited about that. And numbers continue to, even with March taking a big jump, and we plan to continue that jump. I just noticed as I was calculating these yesterday and today, we are still on a good incline. So we're still increasing, which is good.
Great.
So, yep.
April is spring vacation too. People might have been away or doing Easter things.
Yeah, I mean, it was still,
Or other holiday things.
April was still bigger than March and, bigger than January. So, you know what, we still had a good increase, which was nice to see after I looked at it again. It was nice to see March, and we'll get back up to March numbers here again soon. So
Great.
we're excited about that.
Questions? No? Great. Elder Services request for funding.
Yes, we have birthday lunch coming up, Mother's Day luncheon, health fair, and movie and a pizza. So What I'm asking for this month, it's hard to calculate a couple of these, so I'm leaving a little bit of a cushion just because of the health fair thrown in there and how we're gonna handle that. So, you know, if we could get up to 1,600, I don't think we will use that full 1,600, but with these events, like I said, Pizza and a Movie is right now twice the size as it has been, so asking for up to 1,600.
What would you have for expenses on the health fair?
We'd like to get some snacks and some refreshments and stuff, so it shouldn't be too big, but you know, there should be quite a good, you know, for 100 people coming through, we'd like to get some refreshments, like lemonade, water, make sure we have water and some snacks and stuff that they can, fruit particularly, it's a lot of healthy stuff, fruit, bananas.
I bet you have more than 100.
Coffee.
Yeah, coffee. So it's not a full-out meal, but we'd like to get some, you know, make sure there's stuff for folks to grab.
We also have, what's the event that's coming up, the town Friends and Family event, is that what it is?
Yes.
In June?
That's in June.
But do we have giveaways that we could give away? I'm thinking, looking ahead, because you have to order stuff and buy it, so now is probably when we should be talking about some money to do hats or bracelets or whatever we think would be just interesting things with, you know, the address and phone number.
Yeah, we have stuff already at the center, giveaways, pins, paper pads. I think we have some bags still. How many people do you plan on stopping by?
We had a lot. We had lots. And Amy brought, so she cleaned house, I think, and brought a whole bunch of loot. It went.
We do have quite a bit still left.
100. I know I have a whole bunch of flyers left over, so.
Jenna, what do you?
Yeah, I think too, what we'll probably do is try to have all of community services together. So if we needed some like candy for the kids or some like tattoos or something to draw families to the table as well, that recreation could probably handle the cost of that. But I would like us all to kind of be like side by side and we can all share the cost of our giveaways and collaborate. So I think Chris bringing the pens and the paper pads and I think you have those cool magnets and things like that would be great. And then I could have our new rec administrator order like the more kid-oriented things that would bring more people to the table, if that makes sense.
I'm thinking more informational stuff that, you know, contacts for the elderly, who to call if you need a Ghostbuster kind of, you know what I mean?
Sure, yeah, we have these awesome postcards that we give away at the center. So we could bring those. It has all the information on social services and like with the running response program and the transportation program. And then certainly we can bring the pleasantries and yeah, Chris and I will make sure that there's plenty of information there.
All right, I'm just suggesting it as a budget item now. If you need to buy more, it's something we could approve the funding for, because next month you'd be probably ordering it, so.
I think we'd be okay for this one.
All right.
For the next fair would probably be a good time to take a look at what we have.
All right, do we have a motion? Someone to approve up to 1,600 from Burbank for the birthday, Mother's Day health fair, and maybe some pizza.
Motion to approve up to 1,600 from the Burbank Fund for all activities listed on the agenda.
Seconded, anyone?
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All right, vote. Debbie Small,
Yes, I approve.
Joan Coco,
Yes.
Karen Fotino.
Yes.
Well. Karen Panett, still not here. Marilyn Shapley, yes. Karen Janowski, not here now. John Parsons.
Yes.
Sally Hoyt, not here. Sandy Schaefer, not Nancy Twadros.
Yes.
It's unanimous among the voting members present, so it passes. Okay, next topic, trust funds financial report. Jenny, did you not, and you didn't send it out, and I know you sent a note
Yeah.
saying you haven't had a chance to run it.
Yes, so the year-to-date budget report that I get monthly, we haven't received it yet since it's the beginning of the month, but Mark did reach out to Diane about maybe summarizing something, and she did send something along. Oh, thank you, Mark. And Mark will kind of dissect it since he's on the trust fund board. Is that what you're called, Mark? The trust fund board?
Trust fund, commissioners of trusts. So I'm one of the commissioners as part of the select board. So that's one of the things that I do. So I can share this information. I think one of the things that would be very helpful is to talk about what would be the most useful information going forward to the council to be able to work from it. And so I know that we've had discussions, and Marilyn, you and I have talked a little bit about this also, trying to figure out, what is available to spend, and we wanted it just to be interest and things like that. So the reality is that if you look at the non-expendable, I think, let me see, can you guys see my cursor over here?
Yes.
So nominally, those are, let's call that either the principal balance or what we kind of said we don't want to touch. That works for everything except in the Dorothy Burbank. Now, the Dorothy Burbank actually all could be expended, but you folks have had a policy not to do that. So if I look over here at the expendable, so conceivably, those could all be spent without impacting the kind of protected balance, which is in the non-expendable. All right, so if you look here, 22,190, so I can get my cursor to go, it has to, there it goes. You could take a look at that. You could look at the patrons for older adults, 46,000. And the reason why this is a little bit more complicated, there was a discussion, hey, let's just spend kind of the income. So these aren't necessarily just invested in like CDs that would just be paying, $5 a month or something like that. So the market value changes on them. And so if we were to look at some point in time and say, okay, this is the starting point, we want to look at those balances, anything after that we could spend. So for example, I happen to have in front of me, July 2021 balances. We could look at those just as a comparison, or what you see here are the July 2022 balances that were there, right? So you look at expendable Schroeder was 21.6, now it's 22.2. You had 299. Now it's about 298. Patron for older adults was 42. Now it's 46. And then we have the Parsons Fund that'll start to be there as well. So I was talking with Diane. She's willing to produce any kind of report that the council would like. The question is, what would be the most useful information to have? If your question is, gee, we don't want to overspend, what we're getting from investment income, you've got a long way to go. You got plenty of money to spend before you're going to get to that ever. Well, not ever, but for now. So I'm not sure how to explain what would be the most helpful, but maybe that's a good topic for the council to talk a little bit about.
I have one thing I pulled out. Those of us who joined the council a decade ago got these marvelous notebooks. I see John brought his as well that summarize some of these things. I think what I need to see is the actual Burbank documents, not the summaries, because while there's a letter from Mario Siniola regarding the Dorothy Burbank Fund, it does say that things can be spent without restriction. But then it goes on and it talks about the Burbank legacy policy, and there are guidelines in here. And I don't know if those are guidelines the council made or if they're guidelines that are in the actual legal document, but it does things that say that funds should be primarily directed towards services and short-term programs not otherwise provided that address the various needs of the community. Some might require income guidelines. These need to be reviewed by the council annually. This one does say it's the council. The council determined that neither salaries for town employees nor capital improvement projects will be covered under the Burbank Trust. And again, it's a document that it's just sitting in this folder. I don't know whether this is someone's interpretation or if it's in the trust. So I think we need to see the full documents and read them for ourselves.
So if you remember, Beth Klepheis came probably about a year ago. And she did share the original documents and went through kind of a description of what's going on with each of them. And I'm not 100% sure of this, but my recollection of the meeting was that the restrictions that have been put on here were council policies. The council said, this is how we have decided we want to deal with it. Those funds could be, the council could take a vote to change how it decides to use them. But it's council policy that's governing things right now. And in this category here, where I showed you non-expendable versus expendable, per the terms of the trust, it is all expendable. So it's more policy of the council that's determining how it's going to get used.
Did you actually give us the full copies of the original documents or a summary sheet? I think I was remembering a summary sheet.
It was a summary sheet.
Yeah, and I wish I could find that. Frankly, I can't.
So actually, town meeting voted on it, and you can actually do a quick search inside on the website under Burbank Trust, Dorothy Burbank Trust, and you should be able to get to the town meeting. I think that may be the best way to get to the original document. But I believe that in that vote, in that discussion, it went through and it had to be authorized by town meeting, which was done.
Okay, I think it just would be good for us to actually see it, because this question just comes up again and again and again among council members, among select board, and I think we just all need to put our eyes on the actual physical document.
Yeah, no, I think we can do that. I think that you know, if you were looking kind of for a summary, the summary would be that there are definitely tens of thousands of dollars of funds that are expendable here. Should the council decide.
Personally, I'm looking for the raw data, the original actual document, so that I can sort out, okay, all those things we could change if we wanted to. And I'll feel comfortable with it, but I really want to see it.
Marilyn?
Yes. Yes.
I have a question. First of all, about the documents, it seems to me that the town would have a copy of all the original documents. So I don't know if it's a town clerk, but it seems to me we should be able to ask somebody. I've actually tried digging through the town meeting and all that stuff. It's very, very difficult and it's very confusing. So it seems like the trust fund committee should have a copy of the original document. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, I really like that report that you presented, Mark. The only thing I would ask to be added to that is what was paid out of that trust each month.
And that's what's on the other report that we usually get.
No.
Yes, it is.
Well.
Yeah, but no, not that we usually get anymore.
I know.
Yeah, but that's, I would like to see the you know, what it is that we expended it on, you know, birthday lunch. Whatever it is, on this nice short report. I don't care about that other report.
Yeah, so I don't think, I'm pretty sure that from a financial point of view, it's not collected by purpose. It's probably by vendor. And it's by fund.
Yeah, I don't really care how it's collected. I would just like to see what was spent from that trust fund. However, the town has to collect it to put it on that report.
So transactions each month.
Correct.
Yeah, and that was actually really far behind Mark for a while, which is why it wasn't updating on the reports.
Right.
But I think that Diane's done a really great job at getting up to speed now. So that should reflect in the future.
And I'd just like to say, I agree with Nancy. We used to get that and it was very helpful. So I'm just supporting what she said, that's all.
Well, we didn't used to get something that said by event. We got it by vendor, just as Mark is saying.
No, we didn't. We had it.
You went before you joined,
Oh.
10 years ago. We used to get it faithfully every month. And it does by vendor, just as Mark says, list who we paid and how
Right.
much and when. And you kind of had to back up and say, okay, the reason we paid a clown was we had a clown event. But we figured that we did that.
But when you were deciding what you might want to spend, you could see right in front of you what you had spent the month before.
Yes.
Which is what I thought was nice.
I agree. I think we still should look at that. Here's a sample. I knew I had
I've got about 20 of them. If you want them.
I've got hundreds of them. But anyway, but the bottom line is, we do want to monitor expenditures and know where the money is going and when.
Watch what you
So-
say, there are lawyers out there.
Just keeping our eye on us. So Jenna, I don't know if we can go back to getting that, but also Mark, your summary makes it really easy to see what we've got available to spend as opposed to what we spent. So it's the flip side of it.
So what I'm wondering is, would you like to see what happened during the month in terms of income expenditures, but also kind of year to date? So there's a summary. So it says, okay, in year to date, we've expended $162 from the Schroeder Fund, $82.63 from Burbank, things like that, so that you can see both transactions by month and what's our standing year to date.
Yes, so that way we know how much we've got left if our goal is still, as long as it's to stay within interest, or even if it goes to within principal, at least we know what we've got left that way.
Got it. And what starting point do you want to use to decide this is how much is kind of available in interest? Because over the last 2 years in particular, very little has been spent compared to what's come in from income. So what point do you want to kind of start from to say, okay, these are the base balances that we want to start at. Anything above that is expendable.
I think, but I definitely could be wrong. My understanding, which may have been misguided, was that interest that was not spent in a year got reinvested into the principal. And that each year we had like that year's interest. So at the beginning of the fiscal year, there wouldn't be a lot of interest. It grew as the year went on, but I could be completely wrong.
No, I think that's right. But so as a result, kind of your principal balance is going up.
Yes.
So do you want to do it that way, that anything not spent at year end is viewed as non-expendable? And so you start in, let's say, January, if that's the start of the year you're going to use, and you basically you got 0 on January 1, you got nothing expendable. So that's one approach. The other approach might be that you say, okay, as of such and such date, we're going to look at the balances. That's the starting point. Anything available above and beyond that, plus any interest that comes in, any expenditures that go out, that's what we have left to use.
I think it's something we probably need to discuss a little bit, maybe look at what the alternatives might be. I mean, at the moment, as you say, we're underspending tremendously, and we have been for quite a while, so.
Right.
I take comfort in knowing we're at least building the principal, as opposed to I feel like we're wasting opportunity to not spend the money.
No, the money stays in those accounts. It's not going into the town's general fund or anything else.
Right.
It stays in the account.
So Rosemary, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. Okay, so the monies we're talking about, I assume they're all invested. Somebody oversees them?
Yes.
They're invested. Could we have a small definition added for each trust fund so that we know what we can spend those funds on?
Well, that's what they're trying to figure out.
Yeah.
But not the money itself, like what we can apply the funds for. Can we spend them all on, we can't spend them all on the same things. They definitely have a definition on how they want them to be spent. So just a small paragraph saying what each fund can be used for.
Rosemary, Karen did this for us several months ago, and she shared the document with the council. I emailed it to you, Jenna, and Chris to see if you could, since I'm on my laptop, I can't share my screen. I emailed it to you probably around 5 o'clock.
Yeah, I got it. I have it right here. Give me a second, I can bring it up.
She did a great job with it, Rosemary. If you need a copy, I could photocopy mine and give it to you.
Thank you. Okay, and the other thing is, while we're talking about funds, the state sends back to every city and town monies for elder services based on the elder population of every city and town. Perhaps last year was about $60,000. Where did that go? Who has control over that?
I'll take that if you don't mind. So it is reflected in the budgets. You can see it reflected in the FY24 budget in this past town meeting. So it is basically offsetting the wages in the general fund currently for staff. So that's what it's being used for, and that's displayed clearly in the FY24 budget. And I spoke with Sharon Engstrom about that today. So if anyone has any further questions on that, I think that she's the best person to talk to, and that you can talk to her offline at another time about that. But that's what they're allocated for, and it's outlined in the budget.
Thank you,
So
Jenna.
when-
All public record.
When the state sends that back,
Excuse me, Rosemary, we're getting a little off topic. We can go to it, but we're talking first about the trust fund's financial report. And here is the summary. Chris is sharing his screen, so we need to finish our discussion of the trust fund financial report first.
Oops. Sorry, hang on.
If you can minimize to make it show it. It's in huge print.
Jason Lewis just yesterday told Rosemary exactly what Janet just told her.
Okay, sorry.
Because yesterday, yeah, we just.
There you go. Rosemary, we'll send a copy of this around to everybody, but just so you see it, this is what Karen Janowski gave us all a few months ago. I think it was with a packet, and we probably didn't all have time to look closely at it, but it has a short summary of what each thing is about, and it covers all of our current trust funds, including our new one, the Laura S. Parsons Trust.
John, we have it spelled correctly.
Oh, I know that, it's just that favorite.
So we have that. Good.
Okay, thank you. I'll take responsibility for emailing that to everybody. And again, no discussion on the email, but just as information, I will share it as follow-up. Is there anything else on the trust funds? Mark, we didn't answer your question fully. We didn't answer it at all as to what you want our starting point to be in the interest. We dodged it. Any thoughts on how to best handle that? Do we want to set a percentage that goes back to principal and a percentage that's left to carry over, or? Are there any other trust funds in the town that have similar issues that we could use to guide us, Mark? How about the hospital trust fund? What happens with that?
So there aren't any expenditures out of that, other than I think that the Reading response, I believe, is coming out of that, if I'm not mistaken.
Are we not doing Lifeline anymore?
So we have a Lifeline alternative. You're right. That one's out of there as well. So it's a new system that's about to happen. There's a contract that'll be signed with Winchester Hospital soon. That will
And
take care of that.
did they just run off of interest from their expenditures? And did they run into the situation where there could be excess interest?
I am not sure.
I'm just looking for a role model, like guide us.
I will find out.
All right. So let's put this on the agenda to continue discussion next month.
Yes.
Okay, we'll think about it. We'll try to get the original documents. We'll do our reading and we'll see what makes sense. All right.
Can I just
Yes.
make a request that perhaps, the town staff can find out who it is that is the keeper of those documents? So
the clerk.
that it's the town.
Oh, grab her next time she walks by.
Okay.
You can put in a public information request and ask for a copy.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can try searching online, and if that's not as fruitful as you'd like.
I tried. No. Because we are the Council on Aging, can't she just give them to us? Why do we have to file a freedom of information?
I would just ask her. She may track it in terms of how information is gathered. But yeah, you can just ask the clerk. I'm not sure what she'll ask you to fill out to get it, but it's public information. It's not an issue.
Thank you. All right, so we'll table further discussion on this till next month. But good questions. And what would probably help shape some of the discussion as if, and I've mentioned this before, if everyone could be thinking about our mission and think outside the box, what would be really worthwhile projects to spend this money on? It would be great to do that. I mean, it's why people left us the money, is to do something that will make a difference. I also did notice when I was reading through some of the stuff in the Blue Notebook, the cover letters and things that came when things were being set up with these things, several of them talked explicitly about the issue of loneliness in the community, and they were hoping the funds, well, they didn't restrict how they'd be spent, they did specifically say awareness of loneliness was a reason that they wanted there to be money for things like send a cupcake to someone who hasn't seen anyone all day, you know. And I noticed yesterday the Surgeon General released a report that identified, and I think I brought it, but I probably won't be able to put my hands on it. It identified loneliness as a chronic condition in the country. And he has a whole initiative that he's pushing. I don't but it's important, and it is part of what motivated people to give us those trust funds. So it's sort of what was the spirit of what they wanted us to do, as opposed to necessarily the precise wording about specific expenditures. And I'd like us to think about that as well when we get back to discussing this. But I would love to see something that we could buy with that money that will make a big difference for a long time, and create awareness and create community. So put your thinking caps on, look at what other towns are doing.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Take a look at some other towns, see what's going on. I can answer you quickly the hospital trust question. The income generated far exceeds the expenditures.
Okay.
So those balances are growing. So for example, I'm looking at the end of April. There was income of 248,000 and expenditures of 80,000.
So are they reinvesting it in the principal, or are they just leaving it on the books as interest that's up for grabs? Or do they have a report like the one you just shared with us?
Yeah, they have the exact same report. And what's happening is the non-expendable numbers don't change. They stay as they were, and the expendable numbers grow. So in other words, it's reinvested and it becomes available.
Okay, so the interest would just grow and it's still there to spend.
Yes.
Okay. That's
and it lives in that non-expendable column. That's how it's identified.
It's not expendable, the interest?
I'm sorry, I said that exactly wrong.
Okay.
It lives in the expendable column. Sorry.
You need dinner too.
I did not have
Marilyn, going back to your previous one though, on loneliness, I had done some research and some work on it previously before I had arrived to Reading that I can kind of dig out some information and take a look at.
Okay. I'll share the link to this. This came out yesterday. It's a report on our epidemic of loneliness and isolation, and it was released by the Surgeon General yesterday. It's a long report and it's not just the elderly. This is nationwide, and it was triggered by becoming aware of it because the pandemic created so much, but it certainly relates to the elderly. And when you look at the letters that came with those trust funds when they were set up, loneliness got mentioned multiple times as we need to address this. So I wanted to bring it to everyone's attention. It's a 72-page report. I will send the link. I'll check it out, actually. Pardon me?
I'd love to read it.
Yeah, I'll send it to everybody and we can add that to our plate of things we know about, but I thought the timing was interesting. So just FYI, lots for us to think about.
There's reports about loneliness come out all the time, articles, reports, everything.
I know, there's
I've
tons
been
of
reading them for
research.
10 years.
There's tons of research, I know. All right, I think that ends our trust funds financial report. Then we have a number of things that Rosemary, you have your hand up. Did you have something else still on the trust funds?
Yes, I wanted to talk about loneliness.
Oh.
Where the hospital fund is so large, can we use that for transportation to get people out of their homes and apartments and get them to the center for the activities they would like to enjoy?
Out of the hospital fund, we don't have control over that. Mark?
So the hospital fund has essentially a requirement related to income eligibility. It is used, it funds Reading Response. it funds the Lifeline equipment for eligible seniors as well. So that's the restriction, and it's meant to build a hospital in the town of Reading, which is not seeming to be a likely activity. So to use it specifically for just general transportation to the center, I think people would have to meet an income restriction first, and wondering if we're better off doing that with the vans that we have, and kind of figuring that out that way. I have been
Can we
poking
take
at
money
this.
from the other funds to help people to get to the center? The vans, there are a lot of people at home who would like to get to the center for activities, and they are lonely, very lonely.
Yeah, Chris and I have actually done some background work on this, and again, we're willing to talk offline about it. I think it's more of just communicating with those folks that there is that option available, because it is available. We have 2 vans. We have a part-time driver and a full-time driver. And if anyone called us and needed to get to the center, we could probably accommodate that quite easily. So again, anyone, if you do know people who specifically are looking to get to the center, Rosemary, please talk to Chris. And Chris and I can work on a better initiative on how to reach those lonely people who maybe don't know that that's an option as well.
We also have to keep in mind, it's not just, so we haven't, I don't know of anyone that we have declined a ride when they call. I'm not sure of anyone that we've said no to. It gets a little bit more complicated because we do have a standards of independence. So, you know, there's a lot of various factors that go into this. You know,
could you explain what the standards of independence are?
Essentially, people, especially if they come to the center, you know, they have to be able to take care of themselves to a certain extent. You know, so, you know, a lot of times with loneliness, their abilities vary. You know, the longer they have been lonely, isolated, you know, a lot of times the weaker they have become. So we have to keep in mind, this isn't just about transportation and getting, you know, loneliness. There's a lot of factors that play into this. And it's not something that's going to be easily, it's very important. It's been going around, like John said, I've been reading for about 12 years, 10 years since I was in Somerville. But there's a lot of factors, and we're not prepared necessarily for all the factors that come with this. Now, it is very important to reach out to the loneliness, though, because, you know, once you can reach out and get them to start doing things, the more likelihood their well-being, the better their well-being is going to be. So we have to keep in mind as we discuss this, we can't just say, you know, hey, everyone come. We have to be very strategic about this. So we have to keep that in mind, and I encourage you. Now, like I said, we haven't turned anyone away. And we also have to keep in mind, we just got fully staffed a month ago. But we are starting to use the vans and utilize vans more. Also, you know, Jenna knows this week, and Nancy knows because, but I'm meeting tomorrow with North Reading on a couple grants that have come out. One digital, and there's another one that just popped across my radar this afternoon regarding transportation. So we are also pursuing things. So there's a lot of things in the works, but I do, please, I encourage everyone to, let's be strategic about this to make sure, let's do it right. It's very important. We need to do it right. And I think it's also important, you know, we have neighbors, we have North Reading, we have Stone and Wakefield and all the other things. So please keep all this in mind.
I had a question and a thought. The question was, is someone not allowed to come to the senior center who needs someone like to push their wheelchair?
No, as long as they can, we usually allow everyone. We've never had any.
But if they have to bring a companion with them, they're not able to do it all by themselves.
Yeah, a lot of times we do because we don't have anyone there. We're not set up for that. So we will ask for a companion sometimes.
Okay, so the standards for independence does not exclude someone.
It doesn't exclude, but we have to, you know, we have some limitations. So we have, There's been a couple of times we've had to say, especially if something happens to somebody, we've had to say, look, before you come back, we got to make sure you are well.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
to do that, we need you to come with a companion at least for
Okay.
the first couple of
That's
times.
fine. And Mark, it's one of the things I'm thinking for your RFP. We want people who have experience understanding how to handle the complexity of the issues, standards of independence, and design a building in a way that can handle the kinds of things that right now we're gonna have to be really strategic. So there's one thing. All right. I had another thought and I lost it. Definitely gonna eat dinner before the meeting next time. I think we have finished our discussion of the trust fund's financial report for this month, and we'll continue it next month.
So what's next?
Next is a discussion. Rosemary had written a letter and asked that a number of things be discussed, some of which we've already covered tonight. Rosemary, I have your letter. You asked that regarding the 5 trust funds, could we have an explanatory document? And we've shared that with you and the screen, and we'll mail that out. Does that satisfy what you're looking for there?
Yes, yes.
Great. Great. Second one was a monthly accounting of the ARPA funds, listing what we can use for those funds for. So these are not trust funds, it's similar kind of question, indicating how much has been spent to date, present balance, time span we have to spend them, and are these protected for elder use only and not to be spent elsewhere? I think the question in my mind is who actually owns the ARPA funds? Who controls that expenditure, and who do we need to ask this question of? Mark, do you know the answer?
So let's see where to start on this one. So all expenditures are being tracked. I'm looking at Jenna. I'm wondering if you've been kind of allocated a certain amount of funds, and if you're reporting to Sharon expenditures that relate to the ARPA funds. I'm not sure of the answer, so I'm wondering, maybe you've got a better answer than I.
Sure. So I've been tracking all of our ARPA expenditures on my own spreadsheet. Of course, there's some things that may not be super accurate on there because Chris will go and make his own purchases, and I'm not micromanaging things that he might get for, a lunch and learn and things like that at BJ's, and he might actually just do his due diligence and put in the invoice before I get the invoice. So there's most of the invoices I'm receiving and I'm tracking on a spreadsheet very transparently. And then once they get to finance, they are going into a report. So you could pull a year-to-date report that would indicate the expenditures on there. I'm not sure how detailed people want to get, but I could speak to everything that we're doing right now with the ARPA funds, if that's helpful, or give a report every month on what we're spending it on specifically and what we spent it on for the month, if that's good or good enough, instead of pulling year-to-date report. That might be the best.
You have access to the fund. I think it was $900,000 was allocated for this. Do you have access to that full 900,000?
Yes.
600 plus 300 for.
So I'm going to put a caveat in there. 300,000 was defined for feasibility study.
Okay. So.
How much is left on that? How
right,
much is left on the 300,000?
I don't know the specific answer, but it's certainly the vast majority.
Is there like one account in the town that we could see the balance and where these things stand or something like that? There's nothing.
So there is, Sharon knows exactly what's being spent. And to answer the other question, I believe it all has to be allocated by the end of next year, end of 24. So allocated. And I believe it needs to be spent, I think, by the end of 26 as the latest. I think that any unallocated funds will revert back to the select board for potentially reallocation elsewhere.
Oh,
and we will not let one penny of the money that we received not get spent.
Yeah, the majority of what we're spending it on now, like Mark said, we did use a little bit of the portion of the feasibility study but most of the money right now is coming specifically for the wellness programs, the bus trips, the lunch and learns, the congregate lunches that we've just brought back on the Mondays, which are very successful. And then I do have a tracking sheet of what we're going to be doing, what Chris and I hope to do with his team in the future. One of those is the contracted volunteer coordinator. And then there's other things like virtual program that we've actually been exploring. We've met with a couple different companies that have virtual programming platforms, but the question is that a need of our town? So we've been discussing perhaps putting out a survey, and before we, allocate money to a program that may or may not work, or a software that may or may not work for our town. So we are exploring spending this money, and we're very active in our programming right now and what we're offering. So I'm really proud of how far we've come. And now that we're fully staffed, hopefully we can move forward and spend even more and create some better initiatives for our seniors. And hopefully we can use some of that feasibility study money in the next fiscal year too, to explore some different options.
I think we better spend it, or the select board's gonna reclaim it.
Isn't
Right, we have 2 years.
Yeah, well,
So,
look at how happy he is. He's gonna get the money back.
As Jenna said, the bus trips that we're taking monthly that we have planned out, trips all the way until December now. And I have to say, compared to other towns, I'm grateful, and I'm hoping everyone else is, like, to be able to offer a bus trip for $55 when I see other towns paying $125 or $150, or even more. So yeah, I'm grateful that we have it for bus trips, Wellness Wednesday, lunch and learn.
And please understand, we're not criticizing, we're not seeing any information.
Yeah.
In the absence of information, people get nervous and say, oh, where's it going? We know the clock's ticking, that's all. We're looking for some sort of guidance on where it's being spent. We're not looking for 5 cents for this thumbtack and
yeah, definitely. And the other big piece, which I forgot to mention, is that the programs we're offering, most of our programs now are free at the center. So strength and balance, line dancing, Zumba. So we're offering a lot of non-fee programs to our seniors now with the ARPA funding as well.
maybe even something, maybe a short report to Council on Aging, but we're only us. It's the whole community, I think. Maybe even, a short paragraph in pleasantries of X many programs cost you this much less because of ARPA funds, or something. Sure. We have this general sense.
And there's also a chunk of that for a volunteer coordinator.
Yes.
To fund a part-time volunteer coordinator for, I think, what, 2 years, Jenna?
Yep.
Yeah, so.
Is that posted yet?
Not yet.
Okay, okay.
All right.
All right. Have we answered?
Wait. Oh, shoot.
And and I don't want to talk for Jenna, but I'm pretty sure she and I, she probably feels the same. If anyone ever has any questions, please feel free to call and ask them. She and I are happy to sit down with anyone to discuss and show how we're doing it.
I think people realize that. Again, we're not criticizing. I think it's more, we need to find a way to make it a general knowledge thing in the community so they appreciate what's happening, because they just don't know and there's no information. That's all.
Sure, yeah, and a lot of the information that Chris does send out, like with flyers and email blasts and things, we do indicate on there partially funded by ARPA, or free program funded by ARPA, things like that. So I think that's a great suggestion on coming with a report every month, and I can certainly do that. And with Chris's help, of course.
Thank you.
Sure.
What happens at the end of 2026? And do all these programs that are funded end? Do the programs end? The select board will take back the balance. So what happens to the programs that Chris has worked hard to establish?
The programs, these are all sustainable programs.
These are budget programs down the road, I think.
Yep, we think that they are going to be sustainable programs that we can continue after ARPA is gone.
And-
We have a really great discussion going on with creating a revolving fund program account for just like recreation does. So basically people pay a fee for the program and we pay the vendor out of that of what you, so Rosemary, you come in and you pay for your pom-pom class, right? And then with that money that we get from each senior, we just pay the vendor what you paid us. So it's just like a rolling account of programs. And you could do that with your food programs. So certainly we're still going to try to keep those costs low for our seniors and work with our vendors on appropriate fees that they would be charging us. So we think that all these programs are sustainable and other towns are doing the same thing. They have revolving fund accounts that help them service the community appropriately. So we do have a plan ahead after ARPA's over.
And we're also doing things, I mean, I know I'm Jenna, I'm pretty sure Jenna as well. We're keeping a very close eye on long-term sustainability, making sure that we can sustain what we're doing. Revolving like Jenna just said, but the next line item in here in our meeting tonight is, we are making sure friends of the Reading Senior 60 plus, we want to make sure we can utilize all the resources that's available to us, and we're trying hard not to pass up the opportunities that frankly I think should be in place. And we do.
If I could just add, I think there's also a great opportunity right now to do a little bit of experimenting and try some different ideas. Not every one of them is going to be a success. Not every one of them is going to be appropriate and be successful. But here's a chance to try a bunch of different things, pretty much without risk. And that's great. And then seeing which ones are important, then there's the discussion about, okay, making sure they're sustainable, thinking about different resources to do it. For 60 plus could be a resource. Town funds are a resource. There are, a variety of things that can happen for the things that are making a difference for the seniors in the community.
Thank you. All right, next question that you had, Rosemary, was each month can we get monthly trust funds reports sent separately from the other packet items? What I'd recommend personally is you just print the parts that you want as opposed to making extra work. Jenna, I think already has her plate full with all the moving parts as it is without splitting it up, unless you have an inclination to want to start doing that, Jenna, but you can print just part of the report, Rosemary. Will that work?
Sure.
Great. And that covers your fourth question as well about the large reports. The Zoom addresses, I know I always get questions. People want to know what the Zoom is, and what I try to get people to do, if you don't, it's always in the agenda. So when Jenna sends us something with the agenda attached, the Zoom link is always in there. So you've got it in that email. But if you can't find that email because your box is like many of us, have got 150 emails, you can always go to the town website on the calendar for the day, click on the day. It will have the Council on Aging, click on it, click on details, I believe it is, and the agenda will pop up and the Zoom link is always there.
It might be noted the town website is very difficult to use, which is why they're having a session at the Pleasant Street Center on how to use the thing.
Well, it's also in your email. I don't know what more we can do. I often get calls at about 5:45. They start with, can you send me the email? And honestly, it's hard to be responsive at that point in the day. It is out there in your emails now. It is on the website. It is in the agenda. I don't know.
The agenda's sending it out one more time for the meeting.
Yeah. I know.
Just make a
Jen's been
meeting
sending it
invite
out
or
one more
something
time.
like that.
Pardon me?
Could we do a meeting invite and then just put them all on that, and then it goes into everyone's calendar and you just click on it and open it? Or is that like way more complicated? You know, that, like,
Probably.
It is.
Yeah, because you just have to send that out once and then it just goes into everyone's calendar.
I don't know other ways to suggest that we make it any easier, Rosemary. Does anyone else, other than the Outlook thing, which probably is going to be challenging.
I think Jenna's letter that went out earlier today was very helpful to remind everybody that if there's a meeting and she had the Zoom address there. That was good. That's what I used. Thank you.
Is that sustainable, Jenna, for you to be sending that out as a reminder?
Sure.
Okay, great. Thank you. It's appreciated. The last question you had was about the hospital fund, and I think we already discussed that, Rosemary. Mark went over that and where that stands, and it's growing, what the current expenditures are. So I believe we've covered everything you asked us to, Rosemary. Anything else that I missed in your letter?
No, I'm all set.
Okay, great. Thank you for the letter and asking the questions. All right, next update on the establishment of our Friends of Reading Senior 60 Plus, 460 plus. Nancy.
We've had our third meeting. We're going to have a table at the health fair here at the Pleasant Street Center. We're going to have a table at the Friends and Family Day. These events are just meant for awareness. Any fundraising will most likely happen in the fall. People also have to really think about their expectations though, because friends usually, unless you're like Newton, don't raise enormous amounts of money. We're talking about if the group really works hard and finds a really good fundraiser, maybe after a couple of years, we might get to $10,000 to $20,000. But initially, it's not going to be a whole lot of money. So I don't want people's expectations to be such that there's going to be like $100,000 at the end of this. It's usually a smaller amount of money that's used to pay for things that cannot be provided under the current budget. Any questions?
Nancy, one thought, I hear you loud and clear on expectations, and I agree with you. I know that Linfield and others raise a lot of money through thrift shops that are either in the center or part of the center and that affiliation. And I've spoken with a couple of the directors who talk about, raising decent money. Again, not $100,000, I'm with you, but they do raise some pretty good money. I was impressed also because a number of seniors end up working in the thrift shop and having fun doing that. There was one woman there who was talking about making her numbers. I thought it was hilarious. And I felt like I was in a sales meeting. But they raise a fair amount of money that way. So that's just another potential source.
Stoneham is the big benefit. They've got that big barn. We don't have a place. So that's a problem right now. We don't have a place in the Pleasant Street Center for a gift shop. So as soon as we have a place with a gift shop, we'll open one up.
I have a question.
Mark is right. You get a lot of money from that. We have a thrift shop at church, and we do make hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
It's amazing what we bought for the church over the decades.
Wow. Rosemary, what's your question?
Are there legalities involved for us to add a paragraph to the Pleasant Trees to ask people to think of the center at their end of life if they'd like to leave monies to the center? Is there a legality involved in adding that?
You're breaking up, Rosemary. We can't hear you.
Oh, what happened to me?
You're frozen.
I look like a bobblehead. Are there legalities involved for us to add a paragraph to the Pleasant Trees to ask people to remember us at the end of life to leave the center monies?
I'm not sure about that. I don't know if that's soliciting donations and if we as elder services or a town entity can do that.
Other
I don't know
centers
if
are
Mark has a
doing
better
that.
answer, or I could ask someone else, or I don't know.
Town
if that would
council,
be
great question for
appropriate
town
either.
council.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Nancy.
Well, just let me say something else. Nancy is spending a tremendous amount of time and doing a fantastic job with this. I'm on the committee, but I'm, you know, what she's doing is unreal.
Yes, she is. Yay.
Agreed. And she's a fantastic meeting note taker as well. Just want to add.
I'm also impressed by how quickly this has taken off.
Very.
You know, it's really amazing to see in such a short period of time what has been accomplished. So kudos to you all.
No, up to Nancy, really.
Yeah, all to Nancy.
Well, and all these wonderful ladies and men
Man,
that are on the committee. They're all doers and they're all taking on tasks and they're all volunteering to take a piece of what needs to be done. It's absolutely inspiring to see what they're
it's
doing.
kind of like being on this committee. There are 14 women on this committee plus me. There are 7 women on the other committee plus me. You know how tough it is to get a word in edgewise?
John, how did you work it out so perfectly?
Thank you, Nancy. All right, next is update on the Board of Health Survey Committee. There actually now is a committee that's been formed by the Board of Health to work with their consultant pair associates to design a research design for understanding Reading's health. They're doing a community-wide health assessment, and I was asked to join that committee. So now, in contrast to last month, I really am a committee member. We met last week or the week before. We're meeting again tomorrow. Right now, they haven't, a schedule is by August. They want to have their survey ready to go out. No, I take it back, by July. Right now, their planning stages, it's very much like what we went through with Recalc. They are going to do leader interviews with key players, and they're asking everyone to recommend people to recommend who they ought to pick. I don't know where the number came from. They're going to have 10. They want 10 key people that they think would be really knowledgeable about this. Jenna, I believe you've come up on the list. Carrie's on this. She's on the committee, or she just was on the earlier one. But she's been
Elise
to
would be a
at least
good
one.
one too.
Elise has come up. Elise is Elder Services. Elise has been mentioned. Walkability, Jenna's been mentioned. None of this has been finalized. Public safety rep, an equity social justice rep, and or disability advocate, a healthcare provider, like the leader of a big group like Hallmark Associates, mental health experts, policymaker, housing shelter. So we're kind of exploring all the aspects of the community. And they then will run focus groups as well. I don't know the number yet, but there are a number of focus groups that they'll be running, much like what we've done on the elder kinds of studies, but it's community-wide. What is the health? In fact, in the draft that they've got, which did bring, things they want to ask are really just, what would you say is the overall health of the community in general? They're trying to start a dialogue. They're trying to find out what's on people's minds. They're trying to get a sense of the scope of it. So anyway, I am now on this committee, and I will keep you all updated as things progress. And that was quick and easy. And then we're up to next Council on Aging steps regarding what we can do with respect to the new senior center or community center. We've got the video out, and we've gotten some great feedback. Yes, Mark?
No, sorry, that was a thumbs up, but I think it's great. I think that making sure that folks hear the message and engage in the process and its next steps. So as we start looking at other locations, to be involved, to be aware. It came up, at town meeting, I shared my thoughts in terms of community priorities being the senior center and the Killam School. And to make sure that, things are moving ahead. I think we have really good momentum, and I think it'd be great to continue it. So I'm hoping that the select board will, act swiftly in terms of getting this, telling the town manager to get the RFP out there, to find a good resource to do the work, to let them do some good work. I know that Fidel is continuing to poke at other locations in town to see, if they might have some interest if we had another RFP that went out. So, we're kind of doing all the things that we can. I think that Simon's Way has become much more interesting suddenly also. I think they're thinking about kind of a multi-functional center, certainly with dedicated space if it's going to happen there. But the notion of having kind of I don't want to call it a green space because it's not really green, but having a space to do some custom building on and figure out what we may want to do.
In terms of the Council on Aging next steps, are there specific things?
So
Yes, Nancy, can I just say one thing? I would like to, I was there at town meeting and Mark represented us well. He did a very nice summary and opening. So I just kudos to you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
There's a question I have too. It probably comes because I know so little about computers and how all this stuff works. The video got sent out to all town meeting members that, the town had an address for. Is there any way to tell how many of those actually got opened? Okay, I didn't know.
No.
You just look at views on YouTube, right? It's easy
Yeah,
to, like,
there should be
go to
views on
views.
YouTube, yeah.
Well, I know in a text, you can tell whether someone opened a text.
Yeah.
I didn't know if maybe you could tell if somebody opened an email.
RCTV might have something.
We're still in conversation. I'm waiting for Angela to get back in touch with me because there's a mistake on one of the links of where to go for more information. We also want to take off, it still says draft. We want to take that off. And I'm not sure it's actually on their website. I have to talk to her about that. I think it might be in a portion where it's still draft.
Okay, they must have a YouTube account. 'Cause they're
No,
posting
they
it.
do,
So
they
it
do,
might just
but-
be that they've got it off on their YouTube account and not on their
And
website.
And not on their website.
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly it.
Okay. I was thinking, I see your hand, Rosemary, I'll come to you in a second. I was thinking, once we get the link correct on the last of the slides in there and take draft off of it, maybe we start doing things like a postcard again with encouraging everyone to view it. Do we need more information to be mailed out to people? Nancy shared a wonderful Facebook post with me that someone had said that they learned so much. It was exactly what we hoped to achieve. It was someone thanking us because they said they'd been in the big room, but they'd never been in other parts of the building. And it really helped open their eyes. So we need to think about, all right, we've opened some eyes, we're getting it out there, we're getting a positive response to, gee, maybe we're sharing important information, but what do we do next? We talked a little bit in the past about possibly the council hiring a PR firm to help us with outreach. And what we're kind of stymied on and what are the steps? And the first is, can we, as part of our outreach and sharing information mission, can we use something like Burbank money to hire? And who do we go to get an answer to that?
So I think town council is the first stop here.
Okay.
In terms of asking if there are particular restrictions and what requirements there might be. If it's not restricted, how would it have to happen?
Okay. Other things don't, it's that Nancy has used a PR firm of sorts that helped
It was
them.
the historical commission.
The historical commission, okay.
And
so-
I don't know if the town paid for it.
No, I know, but they found using an outside expert helpful
Oh, yeah.
Yes, so I think there's precedent for towns doing things like this, and we're just not equipped for us to do too much. I'd say getting this video together just about did us in. It was well over 100 hours of work, and we were all ready to sign up on our careers as producers. But
You know what, too, Jenna, maybe you and I can chat a little bit about this. It may be that the ARPA money is less restrictive this way.
okay,
This might make sense as supporting senior activities. It's a question, and you know, whichever they say is doable, great.
great. That was step one, and then step two would be, as if the Council on Aging is doing it, are we required to go through the RFP process? Or are we able to buy things? I think I heard once that we're exempt because of the way we and our trust funds are set up, but I don't know that. Seeing a doubtful look over there. I just asked, which is why I'm asking the question. We'll need to know the answer so we do it correctly, is the bottom line.
Right, so at the moment, we don't have a procurement officer in town. So things may take a little bit longer to get an answer to that. I believe it may be a function of how much money is involved.
Okay.
If it's a modest amount of money, let's say if you said, you know, it's $5,000 to $10,000, I think that's different from, for some reason, I have a slightly higher number in mind as a threshold, but I'm not an expert on this.
That makes sense, because I know we've hired people like clowns to do the clown event and things, and that didn't go through an RFP. It got, who knows a clown, they like to do this, they got interviewed, it didn't go through that.
Maybe not the best example.
We may not want the clown to do the PR.
The postcard we did last year. Yeah, the postcard we did last year, that didn't go through an RFP thing. It was a recommendation. The town often uses this company and off it went. So we just need to understand so that we can act on it. Because I think we need professional advice and.
Love that idea.
Okay.
Brilliant,
All right.
brilliant.
Okay. All right.
And this is the time to do it.
Yes. All right.
Absolutely.
All right.
It also should be in lockstep with what the select board's doing. right?
Absolutely.
So-
Absolutely.
Are you trying to get noticed?
All right. Rosemary and then Jean.
This is for Mark. Could you explain in layman's terms exactly what happened with the negotiations with Walgreens?
So let me try. The way that the building is owned meant that they needed a higher amount of money to be paid to them by whoever's going to purchase it. They are negotiating a settlement with Walgreens at the same time, but we as a town would have to have kind of basically gone to town meeting and the voters and asked for the bigger amount first and say, we need this amount to be borrowed, even though they would be able to say to us, oh, we're going to hand you this in cash the day that the transaction closes, so that your net would be the number that we had agreed to. We actually agreed on a number. It's not an issue of price. It's an issue of the structure. We talked to town council, we talked about bond council that would have to approve whatever we were going to try to borrow money for. And it was the board's feeling that that wasn't easy and clear enough to communicate to the community. In other words, as a town meeting member, I might look at it and say, well, why can't we just pay the net amount? Why do we have to go through these gyrations? And the answer is because it's for them, it's an issue related to taxes. It's not really anything else. And that just became too complicated for us as a municipality to do. If we were a private buyer, we might be able to say, yeah, okay, you know, we'll say we're paying A, but we're not going to actually pay it until you give us this money coming back in. For us, we'd have to take the money out of free cash. We get a money that would come back to us, but that money wouldn't be certified as free cash for a year. So the judgment of the board was it was too complicated.
Sounds like to me almost like a sleight of hand, and somehow they get the upper hand by having a higher price on the building.
Yeah. So I mean, I think we were thinking of it as, you know, we as a town, how can we purchase that building for the price that we agreed upon. And the only way to do it was to kind of have this, a different structure that doesn't seem as straightforward. Again, as a private entity, we might be able to do it more easily. But as a town, as a municipality, everything is open and clear, and it just seemed too complicated to accomplish.
Well, thank you for all your effort and time.
You're very welcome.
And
I'm
and our town
disappointed.
Manager too. Thank you.
Yeah.
Both of you.
You bet. No, it was worth it. And, I every once in a while I wake up and have a dream that they come back to us and say, we figured this out, we're still going to do it. And we'll have to do a new RFP, but.
So you mentioned they're negotiating with Walgreens. What, to buy back the building, the corporation itself?
No, so Walgreens has a long-term lease on the building. And so the current owner would have to terminate that in order to sell it. So that's a bonus for them. That's positive, because otherwise Walgreens has to keep paying them, rent for several years. So what they're counting on is arranging for a one-time payment to close out on that.
Okay, so the other thing is, what is that property zoned for? If somebody else comes along and buys it, are we gonna end up with condos there or a hotel that maybe has people coming and going overnight?
Don't know what their plan will be. I'm sure that they're looking for what's the best outcome for them, and they'll have to come before, CPDC. So it's zoned commercial currently. I think it might even be in the smart growth district. I'm not sure of that, but I think it is. So
Which means what?
that it could be industrial or commercial, or it could be residential, conceivably even residential properties, condos. They'd have to go in front of the CPDC to do most anything, however.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you from all of us. We know how hard you worked. It's been a battle for the year.
Very disappointing. I thought that it would be a good solution. I thought we were there.
And you tried really hard.
Not over till it's over.
It's true. Jean, you had your hand up, but you put it down. Do you still have a question?
Well, no, I was just wondering, we were talking about the possibly hiring a professional. In my research, I have found that the average price or the average charge would be between 5,000 to 10,000.
Yeah.
And I am waiting to receive information from one video producer. And my other thought is, as far as letting the general residents of Reading know that this video is available, is there any way, or do we have someone within the town that's responsible for press releases, maybe to put it in the patch of the post to let residents know that there's a video available?
A great idea, Jean, and the answer is yes, we do. And so we can talk to Jane Wellman about doing that. I think that's a great idea.
Thank you, Mark. I'd appreciate that.
We should have an article written, so not just release the video, but to have like a nice write-up and then say, for more information, you can see the movie, but I think that an article would be.
These are things that I'm hoping a PR firm might be able to help us with.
Yeah.
In between the fact that we only meet once a month and all the open meeting stuff limiting what we can do with communication, we need pros to drive this and know wording that works and have experience with media that's most effective. So we can do what we can in the meantime, but it's tough, as we all know.
I can also blast it out. I believe that's okay if I blast it out through our email blast.
Sure, I can do the same too.
Once it's fixed.
Once it's fixed.
Once it's fixed.
Yeah. Once I have the link, I can blast it out.
We talked before, I think, about the schools as a channel to push information out also. And I think it's absolutely worth talking to the superintendent. I think they'd be happy to do it too. I can't speak for them, but I think they would.
Okay, good ideas. All right, so Mark, you and Jenna are going to talk about the maybe ARPA money for hiring someone, but we also need to bring town council into the discussion to see. My experience has been is that we can't reach out to town council directly. Is that incorrect? We need to go through Fidel, or can we just go ahead and call town council and?
So best to let Jenna kind of be the contact and or me.
Okay.
So I'd say Jenna, let's you and I can chat, but I think running it through the town is exactly the right way to do it. And that's exactly what town council is there to do.
Excellent. All right, so first we're gonna find out how we can hire someone. We're gonna get the mistake fixed. We're going to, everyone think about things of this RFP that Mark has got cooking in the back of his brain if we're going for the next round of this, and things like the standards of independence that I would like to have mentioned in there in some way. I'll think of a sentence for that. And, that was an important discussion. And once it's fixed, Chris can blast out an email. Jean's doing research on cost to have professionals do another video for us, and we need to think about, well, what does the sequel do? And what would it need to cover? But again, the professional could really help us with this. So lots of ideas. I think we have, no, John, you said you had an item not on the agenda you wanted to mention.
It's something that probably doesn't seem tremendously important to a lot of people. But it really is a hot topic at senior centers all over the state. I had a meeting with Senator Jason Lewis the other day. Rosemary came and joined in the meeting. They stopped allowing senior centers to be able to give cash prizes for bingo or bridge or whatever. And you tell a bunch of seniors that you're sitting around playing these games and you're not going to get anything. And it just infuriates everybody. Something happened out either in East Hampton or Northampton. I forget which one it was. That somebody went and complained to the town that they didn't get all the money they were supposed to get. And all of a sudden, tons of senior centers started shutting it down. So I remember Jason Lewis, the Senate Bill S1143, House Bill 1724. After Jason Lewis read it carefully while we were sitting there, he agreed to co-sponsor the bill. But one thing he said was, it's good to get Council of Aging's behind going to their representatives. So it's nothing to bring up now, but I'd like people to be thinking about it. I would like to go to our two representatives, Haggerty and Jones. And something I'm going to do is contact the state Massachusetts Council on Aging and see what they're doing about it. But it's something I'd like us to think about and talk about whether we want to jump on the bandwagon for that. Oh, and this bill is very specific in the fact that it's got a max of $20 that anybody can win and a max of only $5 that anybody has to pay to join a game. It's not like it's gonna, all of a sudden people are gonna be playing bingo games for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Pardon me?
I was just saying, right, yeah. Gosh.
So that's just something I'd like to see on the next agenda, and I'm mentioning it now so people can think about it between now and then.
It would be good if we had links to the bills so that we could give it to people so people could read the bills.
If you can figure out how to print it, I'd appreciate it.
If you can if you can email me the link, I can email it to people.
What happens with the thing, you go to Mass Legislature, mass.gov, and you can find the two bills, and they pop up in the middle of the screen in a very little thing, and you can read half of it, and you have to scroll down and read the other half, but I can't get the whole thing in one place where I could copy it. Now maybe someone who's better with a computer than me could figure out how to do that.
If you can send me the link, I'll try to help. How's that?
Okay.
Send me the link. Okay. And we'll put it on the agenda for next month.
Either that or Thursday, I'll go down to see Nancy in the senior center. Maybe
That works too.
All right, so that's all I have, and I don't want to take up any more of anybody's time.
And I see Jean you had a question?
No, just can you send me the link too? And I'm gonna put it in the minutes with the bill numbers.
Excellent.
Talk too fast.
Excellent. And Jean, you have a question?
Oh, well, it's not a question. I just wanted to make a statement that I know we're looking for a video producer, possibly for marketing, etc. But I do feel that we should acknowledge RCTV for their expertise in helping us and giving us the go-ahead to do this video and work with us so patiently.
I think we just need to be careful. I actually had approached them about our putting thanks in the video, and they made it very clear that they appreciated the sentiment, but they absolutely must remain neutral and want nothing that in any way indicates or could be interpreted that they were supporting one side or the other of the discussion. So while they appreciate sentiment, they don't want anything that's written saying RCTV helped us do this, unfortunately. So
Do we like send flowers on behalf of the council?
Yeah.
Or
Well, yeah.
I don't know, I wanted to help, because student volunteers help too, and I wanted to acknowledge them. So no names, no nothing, just it's not worth the risk, just we can't have anyone think we are supporting one side or the other of this. We're neutral, absolutely neutral, happy to be neutral, the helpers, but.
It's a little bit like Christopher's at Thanksgiving. They've been giving us fantastic meals, but they don't want us to put something in the Chronicle thanking them, because then they're gonna get 8,000 calls, everybody looking for meals. So they, we're taking care of you guys and we're happy to do it, but no thanks, other thanks.
And in reality, on the RCTV with this, the narrative and everything, there was never a word of you might want to word it this way or that, you might want to make it nothing. They would just tell us what you want us to record and how you want it edited, and they were purely technicians, very friendly, helpful technicians, but they were not taking a position on anything. Is that a fair description?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
one of the things, and I think Angela did say this was okay, that the work group was thinking of doing was putting money into a pool, personal money, not council on aging money, but personal money, into a pool in order to buy like a pizza gift certificate. So that was the thought. So if anybody else wants to contribute to that, they can.
Absolutely. Okay, we'll figure it out. Rosemary, we're running out of time, but.
Okay, before we put money into someone else to make a video, we have to figure out how we're gonna reach a large number of people to watch it. Maybe at the town meeting, the members who would end up voting on funds for the new center. But there's no sense putting out big money for video if we can't get it before the voting public, in my opinion.
We already emailed it to all the town. Laura was kind enough to email it to all the town meeting members. We did ask if we could have it shown, and we were declined for this meeting anyway, because it wasn't seen as directly related to things under discussion at this meeting. I would think that we might be allowed to revisit that down the road when we're at that point, but for that reason, we were not allowed to show it at this meeting.
So if you emailed it to the individual town meeting members, did we get any feedback that said, I watched it and I can see how crowded you are? It's a building I haven't visited, but I can see how crowded everything is there.
It would have come from Laura and the town, so there's no way they'd connect back to us directly for us to know that.
Well, my point being is there's no sense spending money if we can't get it before the citizens of Reading, so that they understand how crowded we are at this center. No space for storage, no space for people, yada, yada, yada.
I think that goes back to what Marilyn was talking about, that where instead of us doing that, we could do that. We'd have to probably allot 3 hours, and it would have to be an in-person meeting for us to gen up a strategy to do just what you are suggesting needs to be done. So we can do that, or we can see if we can hire somebody that can give us the tools to do that. So my question to you, Rosemary, is do you want to write up a strategy plan for a rollout for publicity?
For publicity. Well, the strategy plan would be the different groups? How can we get this video to be shown in front of different groups or people who vote throughout the town?
And
I mean,
that's,
the only gathering I see is the town meeting members. Where else would you be able to show it?
Well, didn't we just discuss this about 10 minutes ago?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
We had a long discussion about it.
Yeah.
And what was the answer?
The answer was,
See if we can hire
Jane
someone.
Wellman, email blasts, press releases,
Yes, the school.
sharing it with the schools.
What would you do at the schools? How would you get citizens to watch that at the schools?
They have something called Edline that goes out to all the parents, and it's kind of like a newsletter that shows relevant information that's going on in the schools. We could also probably, Chris, do a lunch and learn, and show the video at a lunch and learn and get some questions from everyone and bring them back to the COA, or post you guys at the lunch and learn. We could probably do that. So there's ways that we could work together with you as staff to get the information out to as many people as you can.
Thank you, Jenna.
So the video we have probably is adequate without spending 10 or 20,000 redoing the video.
I think it's a starting point. If nothing else, it shows that my voice is now going, I don't know, never coming without dinner again. I think we've done a good job of starting to make people aware of the shortcomings. I think we have a long way to go on promoting what the needs are. And that's one of the areas I would like some PR help on. So I think there's a lot to do to get different people will have different angles of interest on this. I think
Maybe we can give them a tour of the center and say, come see our jail. Everybody would love to see the jail, I'm sure.
I would like
And
to
that could
see-
be a draw and get citizens in for some reason.
I'd like to suggest that we table this and just make it an agenda item at every meeting. And if someone out there would be willing to put together a list of all the ideas that are generated, so everybody would be able to look at them, and then we can keep responding to those ideas. Along with, there's got to be names next to each individual who's willing to take on that responsibility. Because these things will not happen without the Council on Aging members assuming some responsibility. So I would like make a motion to adjourn.
You can't.
Oh,
We've got our ace here.
I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
Wait,
Yeah.
Jane has her hand up. Jane's had her hand up.
Hand up.
but a
Hi.
motion,
Wait, no, you.
No. I was just about to say, very similar to what Nancy just mentioned. We need to get organized and with multi-people participating going forward for a new senior center and market this exceptionally. So I agree with Nancy.
Now can I make a motion to do?
Yes.
second.
Thank you.
oh, you're adjourning, okay. Yeah,
We have a motion to adjourn. Debbie Small,
Yes, I agree.
Joan Coco,
Yes.
Karen Fortino.
yes.
That's not here. I'm doing this on the wrong sheet. Oh, well, same group of people. Marilyn Shapley, yes. Karen Janowski. Sure. John Parsons.
Yes.
And Nancy Twadders.
Yes.
Okay, we are adjourned at 8:29.
Good night.
Good
Thank you,
night.
everyone.
Thank
Thanks, everyone. Good night, everybody.